It's on fire!
So I just received a package in the mail, and it's another part that we're going to need for our work on the rocket ride. So let's get this open and I will show you what's inside of it. So these are from Action Lighting, and this should be the final cabochons we need to light up the ride. So previously we got some red ones, and now we're adding orange and yellow. Got the caps, the sockets, and more sockets, the nuts for the bottom, and the washers, the seals. So I think we should take one of each color and stick them in the lighting channels to see how they look. The channels themselves, they haven't been polished yet, but it'll give us an idea. These adapters we created, just like that. That goes through. There's the orange. And the yellow. There's 12 spots, 3 colors, so there'll be 4 of each color. And I like the idea of sticking with the older style of lights. I mean, they're not obviously real old school. We're not going with these. These are off the combo ride. We're not going to be doing that. But we're also not doing some super whiz-bang multicolor LED thing. I think this will look nice given the age of the ride. Well, I couldn't leave well enough alone. I was dying to see exactly what those lights would look like. And the sockets are pretty easy to wire up. There's just 2 slots in the back and there's pins inside. You lay your wires in and then you put a nut on the back. And as you tighten up the nut, it pushes the wires down onto those pins. It's an insulation displacement connector. It pierces the insulation and makes contact and then feeds the socket on the inside. So really fast to set up. I got our 3-channel chaser out that we rebuilt in a previous video. Got the whole thing hooked up just to see what it would look like. We're doing a little errand here this afternoon in the ambulance. This is a vehicle that hasn't been seen too often here on the channel. I originally purchased this to be a work truck, and then I kind of stopped doing that sort of work, so it's just been sitting here collecting dust. And I mentioned before that things are changing at my day job. One of those things that has changed is they sold the old pickup truck that they used to have. Of course, that means I can't borrow it anymore, which means I don't really have anything to haul stuff with or tow stuff with. And with Carnival rides, I need to do both of those things. So we're going to get this inspected because it can do both, and hopefully it's not going to take anything. Hasn't been inspected since 2018 for a number of reasons. It's just been sitting there. It's only had about 300 miles put on since that time with the last inspection.
Several days later.
Now that we've got it inspected, and I'm heading over to York, Pennsylvania to Lowe's, because they are the closest one that has MDO plywood. And I want to try to use that for making the cars in the rocket ride. Originally, they were made out of marine grade plywood. And MDO is just actually a much nicer finish. And it's also water resistant. It's meant for making outdoor signs originally. So I want to try using that. So we're going to go over there. We're going to grab just a single piece of it because I don't want to invest all the money if it's not going to work. Alright, let's get a parking place. Hope they actually have this stuff in stock. There it is. Excuse me. Can you help me get one of those off there? What's that? The MDO plywood. Sure, you want one? Yeah. Oh, Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
You too. Well, we got the piece of plywood and I'm now $93 poorer. Hopefully we'll be able to get that to the laser cutter this week and he'll have time to cut it out and get to evaluate exactly how it looks and see if we made any mistakes in the drawing. So good morning, we're traveling again. We're heading out to Bedford, Pennsylvania to visit Bedford Reinforced Plastics. Now, I have previously been in touch with them about fabricating some fiberglass channels to be used on the combo ride for the lighting, to replace the old rotten wooden pieces that are on there. And I submitted a drawing to them and they came back with a price which quite frankly was out of my price range. But then they came back a second time and said, you know, you've done a lot of work for us. They said, we just want to make these for you. So they volunteered to make these. Now this is not a sponsored video per se. They're doing this for me purely on a personal level due to a pre-existing relationship. But just the same, I wanted to give them a shout out here because they're doing a huge amount of work for me and a big favor, and I really appreciate it. So I had submitted some drawings, and hopefully I got those drawings right. Hopefully we get here, we pick these channels up, and we check them out, and I got all my dimensions right. So time will tell. Well, there they are. 8 pieces, all fabricated. And the most important part, though, whether or not these holes are the correct size. That goes through there. And the seal goes on. And the light. I think those are going to look good. 12 of them. In this case, I think we've got a 4-channel chaser for this ride, so we can do 3 of 4 different colors. No idea what the colors are going to be yet, but that's going to be the idea. So real happy with that. We'll paint these and they'll be good to go. So I just got back from Bedford with our new fiberglass pieces here and want to see how they're going to fit. This is not going to be a true test today because these have to be modified. We have to cut these ears off. So originally the board set inside of here. With this configuration, the channel is going to wrap around it. And the inside diameter here is about the same as this, so we need to get rid of these 2 ears. So this goes down in the bottom. I think we're going to have to do a little bit of trimming on the little lip there. That was just a guess when I did that drawing. And I think we'll probably just maybe take a belt sander to that and make it so it fits down in there better. Because right now it's a little too tight. It doesn't bottom out at the bottom like it's supposed to. But we get these ears trimmed off. And then my other thought is maybe a piece of rubber here that'll go against there. And we miss our first light. That was another concern. So yeah, I think this is going to work. So I think I've taken the drawings for the rocket car as far as I can go with them. I took loads of dimensions off of my cars, none of which were the same, compared them to images on the internet, and tried to piece together as best I could what I thought the original dimensions were. Only thing left to do now is to send those drawings off to the laser cutter and see what we get back in return.
Fire the laser!
We had a little bit of flare-up in the beginning. This machine is meant for cutting metal. It's a 2700 watt laser, and all of his software over there is oriented towards cutting different types of metal. So we had to figure out kind of a recipe for what it would take to cut the wood. So we dialed it back to about 900 watts, and initially we were going too slow. We had a flare-up, and it charred some of the material. But that is an internal brace, and it's never going to be seen. By the time we were cutting important pieces, we had the speed pretty well dialed in, and it was getting really nice results.
Well, I got the pieces back from the laser cutter, and I have to say I'm really happy with how they all turned out. We've got dashboards and seats and seat backs and internal bracing, the floor of the car, as well as the two most important parts, the sides of the car. And I could not have done a better job of this if I tried to cut this by hand, nor would the pieces have fit on that sheet. We used almost all of that 4x8 sheet of plywood, and any saw that I used would have had a much bigger blade kerf and would have made it very difficult to cut all these pieces out of one sheet. So up next, I have to figure out the order of operations for assembling all of these pieces so I don't work myself into a corner. So that'll be coming up in a future episode, and if you want to follow along, click that link to the left and come along for the ride.